Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this seminar, which is going to be on energy, best practice for sustainability and efficiency, which unfortunately I'm not a civil engineer. So my youngest son is. He would know much more about this than I do. The only thing is I am a consumer, a normal consumer, and for me it seems like a merger between sustainability and efficiency can be little difficult. Either the energy comes from sun or wind or hydro or nuclear. I couldn't tell which would be most sustainable or efficient, but perhaps some of you who will appear today can make me a little more knowledgeable. Thank you very much for coming.
So hi everyone and welcome. I hope this works. I have the pleasure to be the moderator today of this seminar. We have a very tight schedule, a lot of speakers, very interesting topic, and also a panel discussion at the end of the event. So we will try to keep the time and keep you awake on a Friday afternoon. I will start off by presenting myself because I will be the first speaker, and then we will have a couple of more speeches from interesting companies with different solutions within the energy sector. So I will start off, and I represent the company Eolus. We are called Eolus Vind in Sweden, and we are a developer of renewable energy. Here. So we are a developer of renewable energy, and a developer means that we are developing renewable projects within onshore wind, offshore wind, solar power, and also energy storage. From the very beginning of the projects until they are basically ready to build, we construct the projects and we also operate them during the whole lifetime. I would like to start off by our vision, which is that everyone should be able to lead a fulfilling and sustainable life, and we believe that this is only possible with the transition to renewables. We were established more than 30 years ago, so we have been on the market for quite some time. We are still a rather small company. We are around 100 plus employees on a few markets: Sweden, the Nordics, the Baltics, Poland, and also Spain and the US. So we believe that we can have a large portfolio of projects, we can develop large renewable projects, but still be a rather small and dynamic and quick actor. And I think what is characterizing us is that we are really passionate about what we are doing, and we really want to make a difference in the world. Just a few words about us. These are our technologies, and our core has always been onshore wind. We have lately started to develop quite a substantial portfolio of offshore wind projects around the coast of mainly Sweden and Finland and the Baltics. We entered Poland in 2021. So we are rather new on that market. We have built quite a portfolio of around 2 gigawatts of projects, mainly within large-scale solar and onshore wind during these 2 years that we have been on the market. So these are our technologies. And I would like to speak today a little bit about how we reason about renewables. Everyone knows that we can capture energy through the sun and through the wind. And it's an inevitable journey that we will do in Europe and in the world to transform to renewables. The International Energy Agency predicts that in 2050, around half of the energy in the EU will come from wind power, a substantial part from solar power and also nuclear power. If you add up these energy sources, you will basically have a sustainable energy production in Europe. And also globally, we see a huge increase in renewables. So why are then renewables so attractive, apart from the fact that they are good for the climate? So we believe that there are three main drivers behind the transition to renewables. That is, of course, our politicians, but also and above all, I would say the market forces, which are really forcing the politicians to transform to cheaper and cleaner energy sources. And the industry and the market in all our countries are really the drivers. But we shouldn't forget that also people and the inhabitants of Europe and the world are pushing for this transition. We see that in Poland. I've been living in Poland for the last 20 years, and we see that also the public opinion is pushing this transition. Lech is one part of that transition as well, with the solar roofs. But also renewables are by far the cheapest energy source that we have, which means that the more renewables we have, the more the energy prices are pushed down on the markets. We have also seen during the last couple of years after the invasion of Ukraine that energy security is one of the main political drivers when it comes to transforming to renewables. We need to be independent of Russia and also from other countries. So the long-term prices of energy that comes from renewables is also a key to this. And of course the fact that our industries in our countries are developing, we are transforming to e-mobility, and all of this requires a large amount of energy which can come from renewables, but also from nuclear. This is just to show you an example from Sweden. The estimate is that this is the energy production that will be needed in 2045, which means around 20 years from now. This is how much we produce in Sweden today, and this is how much approximately we believe that needs to be closed down due to that the sources are outdated. So this means that we need to add around 200 terawatt hours of new production sources in around 20 years. This means that if we add the same amount every year, it means that 10 terawatt hours per year we need to add, which is basically one nuclear reactor or 2 huge offshore wind farms. And it is 3 times as much as we produce in Skåne, in southern Sweden today. And this we need to do every year for the next 20 years. So this shows what the transition needed is all about. I would like to stress a little bit the industry and the market that is driving the energy transition. We see that really clearly in Poland, where we have a lot of foreign investors which are really driving the transition, and they are looking for renewable energy sources, and we see it as a competitive advantage for Poland to transform. We see that foreign investors are not investing in countries which are heavily rely on fossil fuels. So it's about competitiveness, it's about price, and it's about, of course, the climate. But the market is really pushing this transformation. We entered into a cooperation with Volvo Cars, just to give you an example, a few months ago, on one of our offshore wind parks, which we are developing outside the coast of Gothenburg. And this is an example on how the industry is also engaging in projects specifically and supporting our projects in order to be able to have green energy for their production facilities in Sweden. And we see the same development in Poland. So I would like to now just very briefly go through the different energy sources that we work with. And onshore wind power is our core. I think this goes for all the different sources, but it's cheap. It is theoretically at least very quick in development. It doesn't take that much time in theory. In practice, it's a very long, unclear, and it's also a very costly development process. So this is something that we are really driving towards politicians, not only in Poland, but also in Sweden. The development process is really long. In Poland, we count around 8 to 10 years from beginning of a project until it's ready to build, and then more to construct it. So it's really a long process. We can plan wind power much better. It's possible to regulate it. It is a sensitive question towards the public opinion in the regions where we build it. It is, of course, really good for the climate. It's possible to build it in more and more locations. I will come back to the technology development in just a minute, which will show you what is really happening in the wind power business. And we can really build a lot of wind power if some prerequisites are met, like the electricity grid, of course. The market can be much smarter and can be used in a smarter way, and also we can become much smarter as consumers. But there are a lot of hurdles when it comes to onshore wind. The permitting process, but also the municipalities, the regions are in many cases skeptical towards this. But we are really working together with the local population, with the local authorities to develop it in a really responsible way. The same goes for offshore wind power. This is a huge opportunity for countries to quickly transform with quite large production sources, which are not affecting the local population as much, apart from the view, of course, which is actually an issue, that some of these close to shore investments are really seen from the shore. We believe that it could actually be a positive asset that it's seen, but some regions don't really see it that way. So it's not affecting local population, and it's not affecting the sea and the life in the oceans that much, but we are really investigating that a lot. The same here, long permitting processes, very costly development, and a new technology as well. So there are a lot of challenges as well. I have only 2 minutes left, so I would just like to show you a little bit when it comes to wind power, how technology has developed during the years. You can just look at the height of the wind turbines from 30 meters to, well, 100 up to 200, and also in the offshore wind, and the capacity, which means that we can build fewer wind turbines and produce more. And I would just like to show you one project that we did in the USA, where we actually changed. It's a repowering project. We changed 400 old wind turbines to 13 new, and actually these 13 new wind turbines produced more than the 400 old ones. You can see the old ones here and the new ones being built there. All right, last 2 slides. Large-scale solar power is one of our top priorities in Poland. When it comes to comparison with wind, it has less local and also visual impact on the nature and on people. It is, again, theoretically an easier process to develop, but also, for example, in Poland, 5, 6, 7 years is the development process to get a project ready to build. And you can also be quite innovative with, for example, agrovoltaics, which combines agriculture together with solar panels. But then, of course, panels produce less than wind power. It requires really large land areas. And we have an issue with the raw materials, the components, and also the production of the panels, which is mainly based in China. And the thing that ties everything together is energy storage. This is a technology which is rather new, but it is crucial for the electrical grids in our countries to balance the production, to balance the consumption, and energy storage will be much more popular both for private people having small solar installments, but also large-scale installations. So my time is up. I would like to thank you for the attention, and I will now hand over the microphone to another developer, and Rebecca Karlsson from OX2.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for setting the scene on renewables. As Daniel mentioned, Eolus and OX2 are fairly similar, so we're a bit larger, 500 employees. We're developing across 11 markets in Europe and in Australia. As you know, the world has warmed 1.1 degrees Celsius, which means that 5 out of 9 tipping points has already surpassed. So we need to shift from fossil fuels to clean energy. But we need to do that keeping people and planet in mind. And being ahead of sustainability, my presentation will focus on where we as OX2 focus on people and planet and how we develop our renewable energy assets with those in mind. So biodiversity loss and climate change are two interconnected global challenges. So to overcome one, we need to overcome both. There are two very important international frameworks that we adhere to. So it's the Kunming-Montreal Agreement, which aims to reverse biodiversity loss and enhance nature's recovery. And the Paris Agreement, which is limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. So I would like to share some examples from Sweden and Poland. And OX2, we've been in Poland for 5 years now. The first example is from a wind farm called Klevberget in Sweden. So OX2 has a goal to develop nature-positive wind and solar farms. So that basically means that the nature should be in a better state after we leave and constructed the wind farm than before. So this is one example of a biodiversity project. So we have reached Luna funds for biotop care and wetland restoration in Klevberget wind farm. And this project will increase the environment in a creek, Aldringsån, near the wind farm and reinstate a critically endangered freshwater pearl mussel. Moving on to Poland. In Wysoka wind farm, we needed to fell about 90 trees. And it sounds a lot, but as Daniel explained, the blades are huge. We need to widen the roads, create new roads to access the turbines. So to reduce the impact, we planted about 170 trees and bushes of local species. So this will contribute to carbon sequestration and have a positive impact on both the climate and biodiversity. With all these wood from the felled trees, we have made lots of things, actually. So one example is we had a local craftsman create houses for bats, poles for birds of prey, wooden products, so beehives for wild bees and insect hotels. But we also cooperated with a local school and the city council to organize a workshop for children. So they created birdhouses and constructed them in the school and painted them and took them home. And also with the trees from Wysoka, we celebrated the Hedgehog Day in Poland. The hedgehog is a red-listed species. So children from another school, they created houses for these hedgehogs and placed them in the nature close to the wind farm. And my wonderful colleagues in Poland spend quite a lot of time in the local community when we develop the projects. And they always try to connect with the local schools, educate them about renewable energy, have fun competition. This is an example of one. It's a drawing competition. So it creates a bit of fun and learning for both the teachers and the children in local schools. The next example is from Åland, which is not really in Sweden, but they speak Swedish, so I brought that example as well. It's a project where we prioritize biodiversity. So we test, for example, structures, the foundation of the wind turbines, different structures to see which species are attracted to which structure. So to know when we construct the wind farms, to know which type of structure we should have. We've also placed artificial standalone reefs to cultivate fish, cod hotels, and we cooperate with 2 local businesses to cultivate algae to use for drinks and smoothies and things like that. This is another example. It's from Sweden, the west coast of Sweden, a Galene offshore wind farm, where we signed a letter of intent with 2 companies investigating possibilities for large-scale seaweed production. So seaweed could be used for animal food, for human food as well, but lots of things. So, and this, of course, will make the sea healthier, but it also creates local jobs. So these 2 companies estimate that these seaweed cultivation will employ about 30 people full-time, year-round, and 70 seasonal workers, and additional 5 vessels. So it's a good example of both local community engagement and biodiversity. And the last example is from Poland. So you know that obviously the energy transition also means that there is a change in the labor market, going from coal to renewables. So in collaboration with a partner, we created a training program to transition these mining sector employees into the renewables, in this case, to the wind industry. They've basically, all of them have jobs now. We've run this program for 2 years, and I know that many of our colleagues as well are running the same programs now. So thank you for listening. These were some examples of how we develop renewable energy, keeping both people and planet in mind.
Thank you. Gentlemen, my name is Sławomir, and it's been a pleasure to take all of you to the quick trip for the future of fast charging with Ekoenergetyka. Transport, one of the key activities in our lives, and we all use it every day. It's also blood of our economy. But it accounts for 25% of Europeans' greenhouse gas emissions. And road transport, as you can see, accounts for 71% of total greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really important factor in lowering all the let's say climate changes. Yeah. Most of those gas emissions are generated by passenger cars, and the rest by light and heavy transportation. So, what shall we do to protect our health and the health of next generations. The key regulations came already from the EU. In 2039, sales of new cars with internal combustion engines will be forbidden in the EU. And for public transportation, this rule will be applied even sooner, by 2030. And in the same time, all the European countries are obliged to arrange on the main routes, so-called TENT network, fast charging powerful hubs in the distance of every 60 kilometers. But what does this really mean, fast charging? Different scenarios for different types of vehicles. As for today, most of the chargers installed in Europe can provide to our cars the power up to 30 kV alternating current, so-called AC. Fast charging adventure begins from 30 kV, but direct current, so-called DC. And really, really fast charging, for example on highways, means the need of installations chargers with the power up to 350 kV and above, up to even 1 million watts. As we are in Stockholm, let's take a look on the rechargeable vehicle fleet in Sweden. According to Power Circle statistics, there are 600,000 chargeable hybrids and fully electric vehicles in Sweden, including 573,000 passenger cars, more than 1,000 e-buses, 23,000 light and heavy trucks, and almost 3,000 motorcycles. All those vehicles are being charged by 33,000 charging points located in Sweden, but only 9% of them are really fast chargers. This means still lots of investments to be done in Sweden into the fast charging infrastructure. And what could be then Ekoenergetyka contribution to this agenda? Driven by the vision to create innovative solutions, we achieve zero-emission public transport, design and manufacture high-power fast charging stations for e-buses, e-trucks, and passenger cars. We manufacture the world's fastest and most advanced charging stations. Started in 2009, Ekoenergetyka is now present in more than 30 countries. Our 10,000 active charging stations work in more than 150 cities. Each year, they are delivering more than 7 million charging sessions. And we are proud of really high reliability of our chargers, proven by 99.7% readiness index, so-called uptime. Thanks to the membership in all the main European associations connected to e-mobility, such as Charin, Charge Up, PIRE, or PSPA, we actively participate in the process of setting the common standards in the e-mobility industry. High power is our DNA. Since 15 years, we design and manufacture a wide fast charging stations portfolio to meet requirements and needs all the three key transportation segments. Besides manufacturing, we are strongly focused on delivering active monitoring of our stations and very quick service response. And noticing kind of a skill gap in the e-mobility world, we've opened in the last year Ekoenergetyka Training Center, where we offer to our partners several educational and training programs. Our chargers can be equipped with various connectors, of course, including CCS2 plug, which became common standard in the European market, and is able to deliver up to 360 kV. And very soon, we will provide megawatt charging solution for e-trucks with the power up to 1.5 million watts. This is our effort in making the charging process time efficient and the e-mobility journey more user-friendly. Let's jump to the future then. This is an example how e-trucks hubs are going to probably look like very soon. And this is possible future of logistics centers. To be ready for this exciting journey, we cooperate with key trucks manufacturers such as Volvo and Scania. And in the meantime, we've delivered several chargers to the main European charging point operators. 300 charging stations to Ionity, around 500 to PowerDot, and more than 100 to Orlen. We are also proud of being the European leader in the public transport charging. In our portfolio, we have the biggest realization in Europe. More than 1,000 charging stations delivered to RATP, Paris transport operator. Another example are several chargers provided to Berlin, Munich, Krakow, of course, Warsaw, Drammen in Norway, and very soon you will see more than 100 hour chargers also here in Stockholm. And I believe this is just the start of our common Polish-Swedish journey in lowering the greenhouse gas emissions. You can meet very soon the whole Ekoenergetyka Swedish team at Nordic EV Summit in Oslo. Exhibition will take place on 4th and 5th April. So visit us and experience very exciting world premiere of 2 new Ekoenergetyka products. We invite you to the cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel Bergkvist. I come from Arctic Power, which is a part of the pulp and paper company Arctic Paper. We are a mid-sized family-owned company. We're leading in graphic paper and also pulp, and this is some figures about our company. We start manufacturing paper in Grycksbo mill at the 1740. That was quite some time ago. My ancestors were very young at the time. So this is pretty much some figures about the company. We have 4 different business units, and it's of course paper, packaging, pulp, and then my business area, power. And how does this fit into today's session? Well, I am going to tell you how you can start your own energy company or your own IPP, as it's called in our language. And I want to start by looking at these pictures. Why are we doing this? Well, we sort of have to look at the user. You have to be really user focused when it comes to these, because we're doing this for sustainable reasons, and of course we're in the middle of a huge energy shift right now, and this will open a lot of opportunities for each and every one. And I'm just going to go through a little short about the urban infrastructure, the energy. Maybe not transportation as much, since we have others who's better than me there, and a little in the end about digital technologies that we can. I mean, we're in a changing energy market right now. That is huge. We heard about people just being consumers, that it will be gone in a couple of years. You will be prosumers instead, because you will sort of use your electric car to be connected to the grid. You will have solar PV installations on your roofs, whatever you can do on your own. And I'm not going to go into that much different technologies such as wind, solar, or nuclear, or whatever. It's just that this huge shift is made right now, and this is sort of like a roadmap. What is really happening right now? I mean, you had a very centralized power production before. This is now moving into a whole new direction, and that is that you have a lot of different stakeholders within this area map of power production. And this is quite interesting, because you can probably see where in this map your company or sort of your expertise would fit, and to start to evolve that. I mean, there's a huge lot of metering here. It requires a lot of data that has to be handled. And basically, what sort of drives your business is pretty much the size of your funding and your money pockets, because you can start small and you can also start big. It really depends on the technique and the technologies that you want to use. Here's one example of how to connect different buildings to each other when you're talking about thermal energy, with the help of heat pumps, coolers. Now this looks kind of frightening, because these are huge building blocks, but it really doesn't have to be. I have an example where I have my mountain ski cabin up in the north, and there are 7 small ski cabins that have gone together and put a heat pump in the middle, and then supply basically heat for their small cabins. Of course, in the summer day they use it for cooling as well, since the temperature is going up even in the mountain areas. Coming into residential buildings is that these future buildings will have a lot of more data and a lot of more parameters that they're going to need to be able to control this. And I'm not sure, but what I believe will happen, that you probably will end up like with a Uber or a Spotify or something within a control system of this kind, because the users has to be integrated with the climate outside, with the EV charging stations, with different comfort parameters, and this makes it more and more complex. And this also opens a lot of new opportunities for different companies to sort of find their unique selling point into this. These data will require a lot of washing up, because if you're going to connect everything, you have to wash these data up in some way. I'm not an IT technician. We have a lot of IT companies here at the Swedish-Polish Chamber of Commerce, and we've talked about this before in different AI platforms. I think it's really important. It's just gonna evolve, and when we look at these massive amounts of data that's going to be connected to all kinds. I borrowed this picture from AFRY, my former employer, and it sort of gives you an idea how extremely complex this IoT architecture will become. And if you look at the small cubes here on the other side, I mean, this is not only an energy or power generation thing. This is also about the user friendliness of the people working into these companies or buildings, driving through the cars and whatnot. So this will actually have a huge effect on modern day power production. And I have one last slide, and I just want to remind you that don't forget to log long term and collect data. And everything you do really doesn't matter. But I mean, data, you probably heard it before, but data is sort of the new oil. I mean, that's what makes Google, Facebook, everyone so rich. It's so even at your in your daily basis, try to log everything that you can get a hold of, because it has a huge value, and you will probably discover that more and more over time when you see the benefits of it. So I'm a little bit early. I think that's everything that I have to say. I don't know if the contacts are pretty much widespread on LinkedIn now, but it was very. I'm very happy to be here, meeting you guys. So thank you so much for me, and I'll hand over to the next person, Ziemowit Iwanski.
We will be speaking about nuclear. I'm here not to frighten you against nuclear. I heard about renewable energy. I'm very proud that you are successful. I came from GE Energy, so I know this technology very well. I know as well some problems which are in line for this technology. So one thesis is not true, that technology source is independent from geographical location. Okay, most of technology ingredients are coming from countries where probably you don't like to live. Regarding nuclear, it is a little bit easier because uranium is spread all around the world and can be mined easily in very different locations. As well, sources for uranium are tell you why it is ultra safe. Shortly saying, our technology is minded not to replace big nuclear power plant, not to replace big power generation units, not to compete against renewable. And I would like to show you in which way we are going to be positive and needed. So first we'll introduce, then we will talk a little bit about technology, about applications, and I'm going a little bit focus on hybrid solutions combined together with renewables. And then we'll conclude with our progress and what we do right now. So shortly saying, we are a typical vertical integrated corporation with a manufacturing facility which is producing nuclear fuel. And this nuclear fuel is completely different from fuel what you are mentally used and practically is used in today's reactors. So we are operating not only for power generation, but as well in space technologies, because this fuel can be used as well for different space applications. Reactor looks like a usual reactor. It's a reactor vessel with a reactor core, but this core is energized with a special kind of fuel, which I will discuss with you a little bit later. And there is a heat exchanger, high temperature heat exchanger, because this reactor operates at high temperatures. Theoretically, we can operate at 1100 degrees, but from practical point of view, it is operating at 650 degrees only. Then there is heat exchanger and circulator, which circulates helium. Helium is a coolant. It is why this reactor can be located underground. It does not need an external source for cooling at any conditions. In comparison to a regular 1000 megawatt unit, this blue spot is our plant. And so you see that we are almost invisible. So there is no need for any cooling towers outside, cooling special. And first of all, there is no need for a big space, because you see that the nuclear part of it is site 80 on 80 meters. And if you like to have a power generation unit linked to a reactor plant, it is another square 100 to 90 meters. We can generate from 10 to 45 megawatt per module. Why 10 to 45? Because this reactor operates rather like a nuclear battery, releasing heat capacity, than a typical nuclear reactor, which is designed to operate at full capacity, best of all. Fuel is, since I said it operates like a battery, you need to imagine that with one single load of fuel, it can operate from 10 to 20 years without need to replace the fuel in a reactor core. So I will not come too deep, but I like to show you what system is used. So there is nuclear part of the plant, which is reactor and heat exchanger. Heat exchanger provide thermal energy to molten salt system. And molten salt system is the one that you know pretty well from renewable energy, because it is used in many cases as an energy storage system for renewables. So in this case, this can be easily integrated with renewable energy as a storage, or using excess of this energy to preheat molten salt and make some additional savings on energy cost. And of course, the temperature level of the molten salt is such that we are able to generate superheated steam. In short, this is a typical parameters for steam, which is used to date for steam turbines. Capacities are such that this kind of units are welcome to replace fossil plant CHP for industrial customers. Now let's talk a little bit about fuel. So the core of the fuel is triso kernel. You see how it looks on the picture. This is what we do. There are quite special layers on this triso. And please imagine that, first of all elements which are coming from a fission of uranium are collected within this kernel. They will never be released outside. And kernel from outside is covered with carbon silica layer, which is very strong, good for heat transfer, but will not release any kind of nucleus outside at any conditions. So the upper condition of temperature, what we are using in space application, is over 2,500 degrees. What we are using in on-ground reactor is a maximum 1,000 degrees. So you see what difference is. Then the kernel is placed into a kind of shell. This shell is made out of carbon silica again on 3D printers. And when it is filled up with kernels, then it is filled up with, again, carbon silica vapor, solidified, and this is ultimate barrier for release of any fission products out of the fuel. So each of FCM fuel pellet creates the fuel system in a graphite block, which is part of reactor core. I believe I was quite straightforward and clear, and you understood this specific. Well, now we can travel a little bit to space. What we do are different applications. So radioisotope power and propulsion for 5 milliwatts, but operates for a long time. And then pylon. By the way, pylon right now start to be very emerging system because it is around 1 megawatt transportable power generation unit, which can be closed in one 12-feet container. And for military application, it is the best choice you can find. But usually we develop this technology for space bases, not military bases. And of course, rocket propulsion. With our propulsion technology, typical propulsion is like 50 P. And our propulsion provides over 100 P. What does it mean? You may fly not to the moon, but far beyond. And now we will talk about applications. So, electricity is very good product, but you cannot do many things using only electricity. So what we provide with high temperature reactors is high potential heat, which can be used for direct steel production, which can be used for hydrogen high efficient production, because of course you can use a typical low temperature electrolyzer for hydrogen production, but believe me, the efficiency of this is 25%. If you put productivity of a wind farm or photovoltaic farm over it, you will use a couple of percent only of usable energy to generate hydrogen. Then we have all kind of applications for industrial systems to produce hydrogen with different technologies. and petrochemicals. If we go lower with temperature level, then we have petroleum refining, shell and tar sands, pulp and paper. You see quite a lot of industrial applications, not only CHP, typical CHP application, but as well entering into the process. If we are talking about transportation, of course, on-road transportation, electric is very good. I'm using it personally. I know how it works. But if we are talking about heavy transportation, we must be, let's say, a little bit more selective. So, power supply, energy storage, mining vehicles, fuel, but synthetic fuel. Then ammonia production. Do you know what was the fuel for first diesel engine? It was ammonia. Okay, and only later they discovered this ammonia can be replaced with diesel. But first diesel engine was fueled with liquid ammonia. So ammonia production, energy storage and picking, and industrial use, as we talked before. If here are some results from case study we did in South Central US, Texas, namely. And system cost was reduced by 66%, and MMR can run 70% capacity, meeting very good LCOE numbers in completing the power system with solar capacity and wind capacity, as well which are located in this energy system in Texas. It is in general. It is not what I mentioned. If we are dealing with big farms, we can simply not reshape the power curve for generation, but we can provide the so-called very low base load, which may be used to maintain in a good condition grid. But here it is cohabitation of different power generation systems. So in general, it worked this way, that the solar was in bottom, wind was creating this variable part of power grid, and MMR technology replaced all the missing capacity in this local grid. So actually we have MOUs for about 900 megawatt capacity for 20 units. We work with ACL. Global First Power is our joint venture with Canadian Ontario Power Generation, OPG. We have a commitment with Illinois University, Champaign, and McMaster University in Canada. We are working, I'm coming back from Finland, we are working tidally in Finland with Lappeenranta City, Lappeenranta University, for again a kind of university project, and VTT and other companies in Finland. In Sweden we start our operations only, but I will not disclose it yet. So in Poland, we work with Grupa Azoty. We expect to work with other state-owned companies right now. And our partner can be, I'm telling can be, is Hyundai Engineering. We have a very tight cooperation with them. However, it is they operate as EPC contractor, so each project can be served with different EPC. It is not mandatory that Hyundai is one of them. Okay, so that's in short what we do. If we are talking about the project, I will not come into details, but if we are talking about the project schedule, you mentioned that renewable project is around 10 years. Assuming that we need to go through all same site permissions and technology permission licensing, our construction takes around 6 years, even for new unit, first of a kind. Why? Because it is modular, not by name, but by principle. So construction takes, if it is not power plant, only 6 months. If we are constructing power plants with steam turbine, cooling system, power output, this will be only 2 years. Because site is different, okay? We are not covering a big site like you do. And of course, we place a customer in very comfortable position, because if plant can operate without need for fuel exchange for 20 years, you may imagine that the power supply at the fixed cost for such a long time is quite a comfortable one. And of course, operations can last for much, much longer. Okay, so in general, it looks like this. The on-ground view are molten salt storages, and all the rest, what means nuclear, is underground. If you wish, everything can be underground as well. We are cooperating with German Bauer company, which is specializing in underground concrete structures, like big foundations for skyscrapers. So thank you a lot. I think I took my time short.
Question.
Yes.
Do you have an operation working somewhere?
It is a very good question, and the killing one. Yes. We are, I did not show it. We are under development and starting final permissions before construction. First plant in Canada, Chalk River. And right now it is assigned EPCM. So EPC is going to be Canadian PCL, and M is tractable independent engineering. So it shows that it can be built by 2027, latest 2028. The development of first European demonstration plant is the one in Finland, and I believe we are targeting like 2029, 2030. And I agree fully with you that without demonstration plant, we can't offer anything to the customers. Because first they need to see how it works. But of course, customers are interested, and we are developing projects to be ready for, let's say, commissioning right after 2029 or 2030.
Hi everyone. So pleasure to be here, and I want to present you how we believe the future of energy and sustainable life and living looks like. So I'm Lech Kaniuk. I'm a co-founder of SunRoof. We are currently focusing on Sweden, Poland, and Germany. We have delivered roofs in Norway, Denmark, Czech Republic, Switzerland, Austria, and also in the United States. But these three markets are our core markets we're focusing on right now. So what we do is building integrated solar roofs, and you can see on the picture how, and you've probably seen a lot of solar installations on top of roofs. And although it's beautiful that they are producing renewable energy, we don't think they are so beautiful from an aesthetic point of view. So this was kind of the main driver. The question was, why do you first need to build a roof and then put a mounting system and then put the PV on the mounting system when you could do a two-in-one solution? So this is what we have what we have created. And there's a lot of other benefits. So the aesthetic point, the aesthetic is obviously the first thing and the thing you see. But then we use less materials, so it is actually a more sustainable building technology. So construction is one of a big emittents of CO2. And in this case, you don't need to use all of those materials. And metal sheet and ceramic tiles, they are produced in also high energy processes, and we don't need to use that. Also, the subconstruction is actually also using less material than you need to have to put a tile roof on top of it. Then when you use less materials, it's also lighter for the building, and that has also a lot of a good application. So in some cases, you're actually, you can't use traditional PV technology, especially if it's older buildings or buildings which might also be used in areas with snow. I'll show you a few cases just briefly, but we think this is really a future and that there's a lot of interesting things coming. One thing which is driving is that solar is basically on par with wind, so you can't get cheaper energy. The storage is also getting cheaper and more efficient. Then if we look at the EV adoption, this is also something that is happening very, very rapidly. And with the high adoption of electrical vehicles, that is also driving an increase in energy consumption. Now if we look at the residential space, usually you actually charge your vehicle at home, so you actually want to also power that. And I will show you a lot of cases, but when we do houses, even in Sweden, with a full sunroof, they can produce more power than the house need. And that was a question, why would that be relevant just a couple of years ago? But when we add to the equation electrical vehicles and also electrification, sometimes going from other energy sources or heating sources to heat pumps, you're electrifying more and more the household. So this makes a lot of sense. Looking at Sweden and Poland, there's a long way to go for Poland to get to clean energy. Sweden is very much there, I would say, but still has a target to reach 100% from renewable energy, and a lot of things that are pushing to this. But one thing, I think Daniel mentioned this in the beginning, about Europe wanting to be completely independent from other energy sources outside Europe, especially Russia. It was created by the European Commission, the Repower Europe initiative. And transitioning to renewable energy is very, very key. And to really reach the targets, you need to have a lot of solar. So solar will play a lot of a role in this. And there's a lot of different things how to do that and how to support. But the one very interesting, especially for us, initiative within Repower Europe is the Solar Roof Initiative, making solar roofs mandatory. Now, if we imagine making solar roofs mandatory and we would stay with top-mounted PV, the cities would not look very nice when you look over them. So I think looking from a sustainability of how to build sustainable buildings, but also from the aesthetic point of view, I think this makes a lot of sense. So we are really just around the corner for this, and we're looking forward to see how this will develop, and we are doing our best to start to serve also more and more customers in this. Not far from Stockholm, we have one of my favorite projects. So this is a house in Lindomen. What's especially special with this house is that it's a naturhus, and a nature house is basically a house which part of it is a house and the other part is a greenhouse. I've seen naturhus where actually the house is inside a greenhouse, but in this case it's a mirror. Yeah, very interesting project, very nice. This is a project we did in Poland, and there's a few things which are interesting here. I mentioned that when we do a sunroof on a house, it can produce more energy than the house need. Now, if a customer don't want to have too much power and want to adjust the power production to the profile of the customer, then we can actually do a smaller active part of the roof and the other part is not active. So if you really look closely on this picture, you can see that on the right side, part of the roof is a little bit darker, and the darker part is the active one, and the not so dark black is the non-active. Then in this case, the architect also wanted to mimic the color of the roof with the facade, so we also did part of it in red. But these are simple roofs, it looks good. How does it look if the roof starts to be a little bit more complicated, or house looks a bit more complicated? Well, this is also another project. This is from Germany. This is a house, you have angles, you have ventilations coming through the roof. But standing and looking at this house and the roof, you will have a very hard time to see what part of this is actually a solar roof and what is non-active materials. So we really believe that powering the house with this technology is really interesting. Another case from Sweden with also a lot of chimneys and ventilations and things happening on the roof, and really can look very beautiful. Oh well. A modern roof on modern houses looks great. How does it look like if we do a renovation on something really old? Well, this is a nice project from Poland where the owners really wanted to keep the patina on the house, but also use our roof on it. And I think it also matches and looks really good. So we do a lot of residential. This is our main or first, I would say, customer segment that we are working on. But we also do larger roofs on multifamily houses and other types of buildings. So I think on the, you can really see on the picture to the right, you have the old PV panels on top of a roof there in the background, and then you have how it can look like. On this. So we have two other things. So we do also some commercial. We're right now building a train station in Poland. We are going to deliver a project for Porsche. So we're doing also other types of customers. Well, and here is a restaurant chain that wanted to have a solar roof. And this is also a quite interesting case where they are unable to have a traditional solar installation on the roof because they have so much technology or appliances on top of the roof. So you can't just do a normal installation. So this is what we did, and we hope this will be approved by the chain so we can work more with them. And on the other picture, you have actually a drone footage. So it's not a render. You can actually see closely on the picture that there are two people still on the roof finishing off on this picture. This project, these houses are meant to be concrete, naked concrete, no paint. And the architect said, we like the design, we like that it's integrated, but it's black. We will not do anything that is black. The houses has to be gray. So that's the case. But then we said, we can do a gray solar roof as well. So these are another project that we can show that we can do with color. So in Sweden you have a lot of red roofs. This is also possible to do, but we're not limited to that at all. Obviously, when you start to color and have different colors, the downside is that it costs a little bit more and you lose also on the efficiency. But in some cases, the design wins over efficiency. So I wanted to really keep it short. I wanted to inspire you to see that, we believe really that although solar farms and renewable energy, this is something we really have fingers crossed to build more. But we believe that the future is that you will produce the energy where you also consume it and that you don't have to compromise. And we really believe that this is not a compromise either on the power output that you can have and the aesthetics and the functionality of the roofs. So thank you for listening and hope to see you soon. Thank you a lot.
I'm sorry, I cannot resist the question, okay? Yes. Well, I have three. Please use the microphone. Yes, Wacław Gudowski, professor at the Royal Institute of Technology, between the others, very much nuclear guy. Very fascinating presentation. Three questions in one. Why do you don't do also the heat collection behind it for the warm water? The second, what is the lifetime of it? And that how much would it cost if I want to replace my 400 square meters roof with the rich? And give me just a number. Is it still extravaganza of the very rich people, or this is affordable thing? Those three questions.
Okay. No. So starting with your question about the extravaganza, and I think we have been very successful because we have pushed this to not be a super premium product. So in the past, and many of our competitors still, we can say Tesla is probably the most well-known competitor. The price of building integrated solar roofs are usually much higher, and the technology used for it is also less efficient. So you have a double negative, and that's why it becomes a very much of a premium product. Now we are depending obviously on what is the roof and complexity, but there are cases where we can actually be on par or cheaper than a roof plus PV.
Square meters, replacement of the old version onto very nicely slope, actually on the right sun, on the left sun. Give me the number.
Yeah.
Give me the number.
Okay. Well, without knowing anything about. Yeah, exactly. No, I would say that I would guess that somewhere around between 3,000 and 4,000 Swedish crowns per square meter would be a good estimate, but it could vary depending on of your roof. But this is and this is to be. And it should be also then compared to the price of renovating your whole roof and the PV installation. That's very important to bear in mind. So it's a two-in-one solution. Then the lifetime. So, glass is very durable. We know many things that are out of glass and very durable. We actually think that not only do this have the equal lifetime as metal sheet or other types of tile materials, but it will actually age better, and especially if you are in areas where you have high humidity, because on especially ceramic tiles, you need to clean them quite often because they get moss and other stuff growing on them. When a solar roof is producing energy, it gets quite warm, and there's nothing that wants to grow on that kind of in that kind of environment. And that leads us to your last question about the heat. So how could you do something with the heat? Yes, of course. You could catch the heat which is produced and heat your pool or something else. Well, we are not doing that because that adds a lot of complexity into this. And since the roofs are producing so much electricity, you could heat the pool with electricity anyway. So if there's any more questions, I'm very happy. If there are time, otherwise, We have time. Okay. Any more questions?
We can say we have the common opponent, which is a big farm producer, because actually they will kill you.
No, I don't think so. So solar farms, I would say they will be a complement to everything. We really believe that this is like, if we look at how many square meters of unused surface is where we live and where we use the energy, we think this could replace a lot of solar farms, but it's distributed and smaller. We have. Yeah, the grid is an important component, which I believe that this is another reason why it's so beautiful, because you're producing the energy where you also consume it. So the plan is to also support the grid in terms of balancing services and supporting this. But this should be better for the grid than solar farms that always need to transmit the energy to the consumption. We have, for example, in Germany, every project we sell, we do that with batteries. And very many of our customers also getting EV chargers when we have done surveys with our customers. So if we combine the answer, I already have an EV, and yes, I plan to have an EV within 5 years, 100% of our customers says yes. So it's really electrifying, and there's a lot that will come and be inside, let's say, the units. The interesting part is also, I didn't showcase that because that's not really of our focus, but we have even done solar facades. And we had this interesting case with the solar facade where it was together with a research institute that wanted to see and do some checks, and we had some estimations. So you can do estimations based on the location, inclination, and so on, how much energy this should produce. And there was a surprise that, especially during winter, there was more production from the facade than was expected, and we were thinking, why were there more? But then we understood that due to when there was a lot of snow, there was a lot of light bouncing off the snow and onto the facade, producing more energy.
But one legal question. Is it like in Sweden that you cannot have your photovoltaic off-grid? Can you or not? Can you have it off-grid or not?
No, I think you connect all to the grid. So, yeah.
So the grid is the same as in Poland?
Even worse.
Even worse. This is always worse in Poland.
Okay, we have another question in the back. I don't know.
It was beautiful. You could sell excess of electricity to the grid and take back electricity from the grid almost at the same cost.
Not anymore. This is a regulation.
Okay, Mikael Roos is my name. I have another question. When you have another color there, how much do you reduce the output from the PV?
So with the gray solar roof, if I remember correctly, it was like around 19% loss of efficiency, and almost equally it was around 19-20%. More expensive than the normal version, but we also laugh and say that the architect was also 20% more happy. So, yeah. No, the customer is super happy, I think so. But it's always when you don't have a transparent glass, you eliminate some of the wavelength that you can use. The technology we use is silicon-based solar cells. So we are actually using technology which are basically at the maximum of what is possible for these type of solar cells to produce purely physically. So it's there's a high production anyway, even if you take away 20%. There's another question.
I just looked into the financials, just very briefly. Is this profitable business? It seems that you're actually having quite a lot of losses the last couple of years, and I don't see any profits at all, to be honest. So I just wanted to hear you elaborate a little bit on that, because if this is such a promising business, what are like the main challenges for you as a company, since you're only looking at the financial sides now?
Yeah, sure. So we when I actually spoke with my brother, who's a construction engineer and the co-founder and original inventor, we actually discussed about that we could take two routes. We can either do this bootstrapped, family company style and grow it slowly, or we think that we actually have a very interesting solution that can be very competitive on the market and we can do a big dent. But we can then, to really accelerate with the growth, we would need to invest a lot in the company. And so that was a deliberate choice to become a VC-backed company that is investing a lot in growth. And obviously, during this growth phase, you do have a lot of losses. So yes, from the financial, we're doing losses, but it's part of the investment and growth strategy. We took a decision January 2020, that now let's go. We were 10 people back then. So 3 years later, we were 150 people in the organization, and we've grown the company from basically, a 10 million SEK size to almost a $250 million SEK size. And looking at our competitors, the last 2 years we are the biggest one in the region. We don't know any company that is actually larger than us and have done more projects, but that comes obviously at a cost. So yes, it is fundamentally profitable, but we're looking for scale and being the leader in Europe.
So welcome to the second part of this event today, and we have a distinguished panel here which has been expanded a little bit in comparison to what we planned from the very beginning, but that's only good. We have around 1 hour and we will keep this time sharp. We would like to have a discussion and interaction, so we encourage all questions from the audience here and also online. It's possible to post questions. We will leave plenty of time at the end for questions. And I will sit down as well. The topic for the discussion is about energy, of course, and energy efficiency. And what I would like to focus on is how we believe that the energy environment that we have around us will evolve during the 5 to 10 coming years, and what is needed in order to be able to push the energy transformation overall. And I would like to posed a very general question in the beginning, and I suggest that each and every one of you will answer my question, initiate the dialogue, and also present yourselves, the ones who haven't been on the panel, and try to elaborate on what the next 5 to 10 years will bring us when it comes to energy transformation in your specific areas, and what you think is needed from your perspective and your business perspective to push the transformation to make our society more sustainable. Let's start with you maybe, and you have the overall picture, I guess, of what the next 5 to 10 years will bring us.
Thank you so much. So my name is Sebastian Wallenström. I'm director of PwC, and responsible for our energy transition team. We're residing in this building, so thank you very much for having our offices in here. I did not have to travel that as far as many of you here in the panel. So looking into the crystal ball, always a very tricky question. I was happy to be invited also last year. I think I spoke quite a lot about digitalization and the use of data and machine learning and AI. I certainly don't regret that. I think sort of that has only been reconfirmed during the past year, and for sure that trend will continue and shape our industry a lot. I think also trying to look into the sort of the looking glass or crystal ball, I think there's a constant feeling for us that are involved in the energy transition in different ways, that things are moving too slowly, and we want to pick up the pace. But I think that we should also recognize that this is evolving at a fairly steady pace. And I think if we turn back the clock about 10 years, I think there was a lot of uncertainty whether the energy transition would happen at all. And I think that that uncertainty has slowly eroded, and now it's more, is it happening quickly enough? So I think that's in itself a very positive thing to sort of hold on to. And if I may also add to that, I think it's extremely, in order to sort of phrasing the question of what do we need to do to, make things happen, I think holding on to that positivity is extremely important. And that we can all do by very different ways, in sort of talking about successful businesses, talking about cool or exciting new technology. But staying positive, I think, is extremely important from a leadership perspective as well, to make sure that this transition continues and accelerates. I think the coming sort of years will also be marked by, will continue to be marked by the political context a lot. But I think it's quite interesting to see how sort of nuclear is coming back in Sweden, and having been quite a few years in this industry, not alone in this panel, of course, but coming from a position where in, let's say, early 2010, when there were nuclear projects in Sweden being on the drawing table, and then very soon after that was completely out of the discussion, and all drawings, all project plans were sort of stopped. And now, some 10 years later, we have a lot of momentum back on nuclear, which I think is a good thing, because I think we recognize today that we need so much more energy, and whether it's exactly 300 terawatt hours or thereabouts that will be needed, I think we for sure will need all the good forces, including solar, onshore wind, offshore wind, batteries, and hydrogen. And maybe the last thing, I think what we really see now is not only the focus on electrification or electricity, but also on the sort of green molecules. So I think we will see a lot more of that in sort of green fertilizers, sustainable air fuels, sustainable fuels of different sorts. So that will attract a lot of investment and strategic focus for industrials, and a lot of the investment decisions going forward.
If you could single out a few the drivers, the three main drivers for the energy transition, which would they be in, for example, Sweden or Poland?
Yeah, I mean, I think the driver is still the wish for climate, abating climate change. That is still clearly the biggest driver. And I think when we look from a sustainability perspective, I think there will be coming in more dimensions into play that are yet less commercial. So today it's possible to sort of make commercial investments in a lot of climate-friendly technologies, but we don't see yet how commercial it is to sort of work with energy affordability, energy poverty, to work with biodiversity, social sustainability topics in the supply chain. Those topics are still not as commercial, so they are there more from a branding perspective, which is great from because it means that there's more and more companies are putting attention to those topics, and I think that those topics will also become commercial, more clearly commercial over time.
Thank you so much. Peter, you we talked a lot about energy and electricity today. You work with heat to power, among other. How do you envisage your sector and what will happen during the next 5-10 years? How will it develop?
In the past, it has been more that the client is more interesting to understand how it works and what we can do. Today we see that more and more are ready to take decisions. And I think the main reason why they are more interested to actually to install this kind of equipment is that the power prices has increased a lot. Much more attention on the emissions, and also that today when we see that we have an energy transition to electricity instead of fossil fuels, in that case they are afraid about the capacity on the natural grid. So with our technology, we can produce power already from 50 degrees. So in that case, more or less every industry have that kind of waste that we can convert to power. So in that case, we're producing power inside the fence. So in that case, we reduce the dependence on the national grid capacity. So I think that also is one of the main reasons why customers is ready to order this kind of equipment.
And if we don't use your solution, then this waste heat goes wasted.
Exactly. And I think also that when we have more sophisticated control systems, in that case, actually, we can collaborate with, let's say, energy consumers outside the fence. So in that case, actually, we can have greenhouses, we can have fish farms, we can supply heat to the district heat systems. So in that case, we can have multiple of use of the energy after the industry have used it for their core business. So in that case, we can provide multiple of, so say, positive effects.
And just for our understanding, could you give a few examples of implementations and type of customers that you have, where it's implemented?
One typically is pulp and mill plants, because in that case, in the bleach process, they need to cool it down with dry coolers or cooling towers, so they can secure the process to clean the water. And in that case, instead of cooling that and let it be waste, in that case, we can cool that temperature down to 35 degrees or 40 degrees. So in that case, we secure that their existing process will operate and reduce the so to say, consumption of power for them as well. Other typical is we have, let's say, combustion processes, or then they're using steam and supply a steam turbine. And downside that stream, we can install an ORC system who can operate with, let's say, 1.1 bar absolute or above that, and producing power instead of that they need to use a dry cooler or cooling tower just to condensate the steam. So that is multiple of very, very important impact we can supply to the customers to secure that they have a more sustainable situation.
Thank you so much. Gustav, bioenergy
Yeah.
is your area.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting complement to everything we have spoken to. Potential is obviously huge. How do you see bioenergy develop? And can you please tell us a little bit about your solutions?
I would like to ask a question first, if I'm allowed. How many of you would like to, or I mean, we are talking a lot about electrification. So how many of you would like to stop all combustion, so to speak? Stop emissions? Yeah.
I guess everyone.
Yeah, but no, I'm not sure. I would like to ask everyone that lifted their hand to keep your breath. And then when you've reconsidered and understood that combustion is actually quite good, then you can take your hand down again. Because there is no living cell on this planet without combustion. You should be against bad emissions, not combustion. When you're out running, then you say you burn carbs. And that's what we do. And we do that also in engines and in boilers and so on. And it's good. So there are plenty of bioenergy solutions that are viable and could stay forever, I would say. And currently, the Swedish energy supply is 40% bioenergy. So it's the largest energy source. It's larger than nuclear and hydro together. It's about 150, a little more than 150 terawatt hours of the Swedish 370, 380. It depends a little on how the climate is or the temperature is. So I believe for the 5 to 10 coming years that all the solutions that are subsidized now will probably meet the more difficult future, because it's very expensive politically to subsidize the energy sector because it's huge. It's so much money. So I hope that we will continue to have a better pricing on carbon emissions. Like we have the ETS now, it's 63 euros today. It's quite much, so it affects companies. But the EU has decided to implement the ETS 2, and we will have costs for that in 2027. It will probably start quite low, and some countries will argue that they should delay the starts, and they will probably do that to 2028. But still, the ETS 2 will cover the building sector, heating houses and so on, and the transportation. So other countries will also get higher fees there. So personally, I don't at all believe in the 300 terawatt hour electricity in Sweden, because if you count on it, it's very difficult to understand how it would work. It's doable because you count out biomass as a solution, but if you count in biomass instead, and there is actually plenty of it, which it is, the annual growth on Sweden only on the forest productive forest land is about 440 terawatt hours a year. So it's more than the energy use that Sweden use per year. So it's a lot, and we have about 140 terawatt hours that are moldering every year, or forest residues that are moldering every year out in the forest, emitting carbon dioxide. Without that, we use it. We could use it for energy. We shouldn't use all of it because some is needed for bio. Or for organisms, insects, fungi, and so on. But we can use about 60 or something. So there's a lot of potential. So I hope that we are going back to a more unsubsidized system where we have to pay for the carbon emissions. So I know the reduction quota was a bit too expensive. If we had the same but if we had the same prices as we have today and the same blend as the last year, the diesel with 40% renewables as we had last year would only be 1 SEK more expensive, because they took away a lot of taxes. They also decreased the penalty, so that the biofuel companies has to lower the price, because the penalty was the high, so that they could increase the price to a very high level. So it was like 28 SEK, now it's like 23 SEK, because the penalty is lowered. The cost is still only like 15 or 14 or even less per liter. So there is a lot of potential in this sector. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And as this is the Swedish-Polish Chamber of Commerce, maybe what about the potential on a market like Poland?
Well, it's also huge. Poland has a very large forest sector. It may be more efficiently used. It's 90% owned by the government. So I believe there is a lot more potential to take out forest resources. Poland also has a huge or very big agriculture sector, so the policy has been more focused on using the agriculture sector for energy production, which is really a potential. And in my opinion, the Polish farmers should not be negative to the imports from Ukraine now, but you should demand to the EU that should be used for energy. Because currently the EU said that we are going to phase out biofuels from arable land. But still we have a lot of surplus. You still get paid to not grow food because we have surplus production of food, but you're not allowed to grow biofuels. But you are sometimes allowed to put sun power on the fields, but you're not allowed to grow like ethanol. I mean, so it's really strange policy. Actually, also I couldn't think of also this about that we are putting up, which is good with electrical buses, but in Stockholm the buses had run on 100% renewable fuels since 30 years. Or the last was like 10 years ago that they were switched. So putting up electrical buses in Stockholm will not reduce emissions. It actually increase emissions because the batteries are probably not produced by renewable fuels. So we need to think more of what we do. It's too much branding, too much marketing, and too little thought about the policy today.
Very interesting thoughts. Thank you so much.
Talking too much.
No, not at all.
But there is one correction. It is not the government who is the owner of this is the state. People are the owner, not the government.
Okay. But the government runs
runs it, yes.
Yeah, true.
All right, let's jump from bioenergy to nuclear again. Ziemowit, could you elaborate a little bit, because you obviously have a very innovative product, a new one or a new way of thinking nuclear. What is the perspective in the next 5-10 years, both for your company? How do you think, how much implementations will you do, and where will nuclear go? We already had a short elaboration on that.
Okay, so the sentence to be remembered from this meeting is that thinking has perspective. And I would like to discuss a little bit. How long it take to the average tree to grow up? It's around of my age, okay, over 60 years. And now you wish to combust it in 2 minutes in your boiler. It is my opinion about biofuels. Regarding other technologies, these are materials. In GE many years ago, we were dreaming to replace blades from rotors with carbon fibers.
Yes, one of the first wind turbines, wooden wind turbines, has now been developed in Sweden.
Yeah. So because this carbon fiber, I will not explain, is very flexible. So you can operate wind turbine at any wind conditions. Like you may operate, let's say, racing boats. Shortly saying, with photovoltaic, the photovoltaic film is the future. Okay, so the today's panels will be replaced with film. You may place this film everywhere and generate your electricity using this technology. Coming back to nuclear, my personal opinion, and this is my opinion, okay, don't call that as general opinion, is that we are in general with technologies which are pretty aged. They are modernized. Okay, you may drive IT car with reciprocating engine, which was built in 50s. So the fuel in today's reactor remains the same. Fourth generation reactors like ours have completely different concept. I'm not discussing different concepts of the fuel, but some of them have already melted type of fuel, some of them has rigid type of fuel like ours, but anyways, what we can guarantee in this new type of reactors is that at any conditions, at any circumstances, this reactor will not release radioactivity outside of the nuclear power plant. And this is the major concern against nuclear in general. As well, this kind of fuel can be safely stored. So that's about nuclear and, of course, materials. So what we do in Sweden, what we do in Finland, we are going to build and to close a local supply chain and develop new type of materials which will be used at a lower cost, higher reliability, and higher performances. We are in contact, thanks to meetings last year with Aleima company. We built our contacts with manufacturing facilities in Sweden and in Finland. And I believe that specifically in the stainless steel area, there is quite a lot to do to be used in, let's say, a massive type of production for this kind of applications. So that's, and of course, if we are talking about nuclear, just imagine that big nuclear power plants can be of importance to large utilities. But to the customers, it might be more effective if any kind of power generation is distributed.
All right, thank you so much. It's been quite a lot about energy sources, nuclear, bioenergy, and also heat. Sebastian, you mentioned before also questions like AI and the impact that that has on our lives overall. Also within energy, software, AI, all of these things have a really large importance. What do you say, Gabriela, about what impact will AI and software have on the transition and on energy in general?
Okay, so let me introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Gabriela Gizgrusza. I'm working for ConnectPoint. ConnectPoint is information technology provider and system integrator. And we provide solutions for the companies from energy sector, but also from manufacturing and utilities. And at the moment, we see a great focus on the collection of different data. And during the previous session, Daniel already explained the importance of the data, and we already know that the data is fuel of our times, and companies see that the information that they can gather from all this data in real time collected is important to optimize processes, also to be more efficient, and so on. But what I see is the huge distance between the data and between the information they can get. Yeah. So what we do is, first of all, we are gathering all this data, we are cleaning the data, verifying, and so on. Then we need to put the context to this data, and then we apply data science. So also AI, like machine learning and other deep learning and neural networks, etc., to get some insights from the data and to get the information that is useful for the companies. So one way of the usage of such information is developing of some recommendation systems, for example, that can support decision-making process as far, for example, when it goes to the energy sources management, for example, and AI is related to many different algorithms and methods. And what I see, what is important at the moment is natural language processing that makes the different how the users interface the systems and how they can users can get the information. Because in traditional systems, they get the information that is already prepared for them. For example, they want to have information about the anomalies in the system. So if they have proper algorithms implemented and dashboards, they can get this information. But if not, they still won't get this information. And with natural language processing, they can ask simple questions in their language. And if the data are stored in the system will put back the information. So they can interact in natural way without need of knowing like complex data queries or some specific knowledge.
Can you give us some specific examples of implementations?
Yes, for example, if the company have the data collected in real time and the data is prepared in proper way, so it is clear and verified and so on, and the user, for example, ask which machine has the greatest potential to break down during the next week, so it is possible to get such information, yeah? So the user, or for example, the user can ask which line have the greatest energy efficiency, yeah, or is the less efficient. So the user can ask different questions, but related to the same data and see it in different contexts. And it can be done on the fly by the machine, yeah, because the user doesn't have to know how many different operations is done in the background.
Okay, so it's basically a way to be smarter and to be able to be more energy efficient, right?
Yes, the questions can be related to efficiency, but also it can be related, for example, to environmental data and carbon footprint and water management and waste management. So we collect the data from the production systems in real time, and it can be transformed, recalculated for example, for carbon footprint, and give the answer to the person.
Thank you so much. We'll get back to the topic soon again. Let's jump back to solar energy. Lech, obviously you believe in this very much, and you mentioned about EU and also which helps you on the way a little bit, and we'll probably do that. What is your perspective next 5-10 years? How will your market develop?
So I would say that, you know, with the perspective of making solar roof mandatory, the perspective is amazing, and I think it just combines also with the electrification, with the increase of energy consumption, and so I think we're in a very interesting space. I think we're also coming to the market with a product which doesn't have to be a premium product just for people that are willing to spend more money for the aesthetics, but we can actually make a product which is better than traditional solar panels top mounted on roofs. So I think it's very, very interesting, and obviously it will be complementary, because if you have a good roof, then it doesn't make sense to change it. I think also in terms of looking at financing these kind of investments, we're also working on creating a financing solution for our roofs, and we can actually see, and for some types of customers, we could actually set up a financing where you could get the roof for 1 krona or 1 zloty. And the savings, or the value the roof is producing, is actually paying off the whole investment. So this is also something we're working on, and this could be a solution, and this is something we want to offer for municipalities, cities, where they don't have a budget. They have very aggressive targets, especially Poland has aggressive targets to meet, you know, transition from coal energy into green energy, but they don't have the funds to do this, and we see that they don't have to have the funds to actually make this change. What is a challenge, though, is that on the one hand we have good regulations, but on the other hand, all of these regulations are trying to find their way. They boost sometimes one thing, and then they need to hold back on another thing, and so it's a constant changing environment. And the way how regulations are also changed in countries, this includes Sweden, is that it can cause from one day to another a very rapid impact on how people are actually deciding on purchasing or not. And sometimes we've seen in Germany just last year, there was a communication that there will most probably be a change, but we don't know yet what the change is. Immediately all decisions are on hold, and they're waiting to know what will be the decision so they can actually count this. So all of these also changes are impacting us and the customers obviously very, very quickly. We have a case in Sweden, for example, lately where there is a green subsidy, grön teknik, for also buying batteries. And this is amazing, I think, because in the new infrastructure of energy, I think there was a picture also earlier that we're transitioning from this centrally produced energy to a distributed system. And this distributed system needs data, needs management, and we need to transition into that. And all of the different units and assets have to work together, and batteries are a very important component. So I was super happy that Sweden is now investing more in also pushing batteries. And then a couple of months later, the tax authority says that you get the subsidy, but only if you're using this for yourself. But if you want to start to use the battery in a balancing service, then you're not allowed for the subsidy, or there's a question mark on this. So these constant changes is really shifting and making it quite difficult to maneuver. Overall, it will be amazing. And one thing that also feels quite exciting is that there are technology. I mentioned that silicon-based solar cells are quite at the top of what they physically can produce. But there are interesting companies where they are trying to push out to the market sandwich solutions where you have a perovskite layer on top of traditional solar cells, and that can boost up the energy efficiency, which is super interesting for us and for the cases of, for example, large buildings, which has the roof space compared to the volume below is very disproportionate if you compare it with a traditional house. So in the house case, we can produce energy for the house and the electrical vehicles, but for a building, the Bonnier house we were today, that roof wouldn't be sufficient to power the whole house. So it's interesting also to see these technologies also rising.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to, or get back to heating and cooling again. Tatiana, you represent Norda, and you, I think, write on your homepage that you provide wiser heating and wiser cooling. Could you explain to us what you are doing and how that impacts?
Yeah, well, what that wiser means. So it's definitely picking back to what Gabriela was saying. It's smarter. And in a sense, what we are providing is digital solutions for smarter grids. So basically, how do you use technology to balance supply and demand, no matter what is the source of the energy? And then navigating back to your question, so what will be the change in the next 2 to 5 years? So it's a lot of hype and buzz around machine learning and AI. And myself, I'm coming from background as computer science, mathematics, and physics. And honestly, AI was around since 1950, right? And really why it picked up for the last couple of years plus, it's because of the massive compute power. So we can generate with multi-billion parameters models and really get some results. And yet, even if we were saying like every business today is a digital business, otherwise you become a commodity. It's still actually, the recent report from PwC is saying only 5% doing concrete return of investment. Actually, delivering something more than skin deep applications. And what I hope or expect is that we really progress from POC, so proof of concepts, to deployment at scale. From, we mentioned this local optimization to global to distribution, and again from data-centric IE, so making sense of data, because again mentioned several times today, data is not a problem, and believe me or not, data will increase. What they're saying, by 2025 the amount of data is like 175 zettabytes, and for those who don't know, zettabyte, it's a number 21 digit behind, you can imagine. And the reason for that is that because we have a lot from before, and now machines and sensors, all of that produce it in such a high space. So it's not really about analytics, be it physics, be it machine learning, whatnot. It's really making sense of that data, right? We come to a point where it's like, where do I even start? Forget like smart decision making. And that is really the chasm of digitalization. It's going from data to insights, what you mentioned, Gabriela, creating ontology, to actually doing something concrete, some concrete action items, and even to the full augmentation. It's like, forget providing me a smart dashboard. It's like, it all looks good, but how is it different from a very sexy, spreadsheet, right? We are back to the same, what we were 5 years ago. It's really coming to a point where little to no human interaction is needed. Right, I give you an example. So if you know the smart centers where you have light, if you leave the room, nobody in the room, they just switch off. Right, it's integrated in our behavior, not just distributing it. Like now you have the means of smart decision learning, and to get to that part is really the hard part, right? Because you have to have this foundational trust in data, combine it with domain expertise. So as Gabriela said, really creating that industry knowledge graph, because a knowledge graph for let's say heat pumps, for solar power, for generally for energy, for medicine, it's completely different. You need that domain expertise paired with machine learning, right? So create, again, foundational trust in data, validate your results, and scale it to a point it comes to self-learning, right? So it's not one-time solution. We like one building, it's smart, it's working, but you talk about several buildings, you talk about cities, you talk about countries, to a point like where is Sweden, is sunny, we oversupplying energy, we store it, and we give it to Norway because it's been raining there for a lot of, it's as simple as that, right? And I am not thinking it will happen in 2 years, but I do hope it is towards a journey. And then that is technology impact, and then we can talk about quantum computing and how it will propel with neuro-symbolic IE or whatnot. And then it always comes to business and society, right? Because as simple as it is, you cannot be green if your bottom line is red. And it's still about the liquidity of market, what is driving the cost of what, and if oil and gas and consumption is still effective, it is going to be the case. So how don't you just fix using technology the after effects of the market, but really the cause, right? Again, what should be oversupplied, what should be monitored, and of course regulations, and you talk about green funds and tax releases or whatnot.
But it makes sense, everything you say, but could you explain a little bit how you at Norda, how you make sense of that data and what you do with it and how it helps?
Yeah, so we provide first and foremost a platform that makes sense of the data, let's put it as that, and you need a special architecture for fast compute, for machine learning development, and again apply that knowledge graph for industry, work on real-time data, real use cases. And then we provide analytics. So Norda was one of the companies that really pioneered this field of IE, thermal excellence, for more than 20 years. And it's getting it also point to self-learning, meaning that you come to a point where you have a building and you know the spatial sizes of it, you know what are the inputs, outputs, and you basically work with a cold case, meaning you don't actually need real-time data before you can already predict something. And when the data starts coming in, you just do some adjustments to tune it basically, and that is really that quick deployment and return of investment, like showing like in a couple of weeks you're actually doing something, you're actually saving something. And that is what is really will push us forward, not just another talk about sustainability and IE and how it's important. It's like at the end of the day, we need to see that it's working. And yeah, Plexus is a very good example of that. So we just got this huge project, with one of the largest one recently, and that is basically making entire grid of Gothenburg smart, and avoid overproduction both of heating and cooling. We are talking about 100 megawatts for heating, 24 megawatts for cooling. And as I said, store when you oversupply, store that energy and use it when the demand is on its peak. Sounds simple, but 5 years of project, a lot of partners, everything from telecommunication and smart metering providers, obviously software, which is coming from us. But it's just a start. Again, if you do Gothenburg, then why not connect several cities and then countries? And that is how you eat an elephant.
Thank you so much. Impressive. All right, we have a few minutes left. I know you have one question, and we will open up for questions from the audience now. So please.
It will be one question with few components, and it is actually to you. Yes, just reverting the order, because your first presentation to the certain degree irritated me very much. So I would like to have a comment on one statement which I heard in Poland on the big energy conference, by the way, from the very renowned company, but it's not PwC. You know, they have planned, you know, to harvest 90 gigawatt electric from the offshore farms on Baltic Sea. When I asked them, did you really make, you mentioned that about the impact on the marine life, did you really make the real environmental study, you know, the long term, like we do for nuclear, you know, 20 years, what really? Oh, professor, Baltic Sea is a dead sea. We will harvest on the energy. Do you agree with that statement? That's the first question. Then the second question, as you mentioned, I asked very particular questions to the SunRoof. How much is it? You know, you showed a very beautiful energy storage. I presume it was an electrical energy storage because it was in the context of windmills. What is inside of this energy storage?
Okay, so let me answer the first question first. No, we don't believe that the Baltic Sea is a dead sea, and of course, yes, we spend a lot of resources and time and energy on environmental studies, and in both when it comes to onshore wind and when it comes to offshore wind, including birds and all kinds of effects on marine life and also on the fishery industry and so on. And our take on that is that offshore wind on the whole is a really sustainable and a long-term solution to get clean energy. Of course, there is negative impact with all kinds of energy sources. We don't deny that, but the total impact is positive. When second question, yes, yeah, the picture that I shown, that's battery storage.
Could you tell me the price of the 1 kilowatt hour from this energy storage?
No, I can't tell you that from the top of my mind.
I can tell you.
At this stage, what I can tell you is that it's too expensive. But it's an evolving technology which will most probably, and it needs to go down in price.
It will go down, but today it is 1,000 times more expensive. 1 kilowatt hour costs as much as 1 megawatt hour from the grid. And it is going down, but it will not go down to the level maybe more than 100 of many reasons. You know, the energy density, the energy, you know, it's a physics. It's energy density. You will not change that unless there is a really breakthrough on the scientific or technological level.
We can elaborate on that. It works on some markets. In Poland, for example, companies like ours are developing battery storage all over the country, but they are not constructing them most probably because it is too expensive right now. The project that I showed you there is in the US, and in the US there is first of all a huge need for balancing the grid. So there we have clients to these projects, and there we actually construct them because it makes commercial sense as well. So it's different on different markets.
What is the source of lithium to the batteries?
Yeah, we have the same sustainability issue when it comes to both panels and batteries. Yes?
Very, very interesting discussion. It's almost like a Eurovision contest with different suggestions. But I'm just wondering, to provoke, I'm not mathematician, physician, and your intelligence, amazing. So actually, one simple question, because this data is coming up and coming up. And for thinking people, you can start to worry, because my only conclusion is someone who will be in control of data will be actually in the control of the world, to be a little bit pathetic, because without energy we don't exist. So how safe we can be that this data, you know, it's not kind of energy Facebook that one day will leak somewhere and then, you know, the game is over. So it's one point. The second question, you mentioned something about paying for CO2 emissions. Who is gonna pay for it? I mean, poor people who can afford the roof over their heads or live in old apartments, because those people will be the ones who are emitting the shit to the air. You know, so again, I'm a little bit worried about all this green thinking in that terms, that we talk efficiency, sustainability. Do we think sustainable energy in Sweden, Norway I come from, Europe as such? Or are we not dividing through these green policies the world to that can choose between nuclear and this and this and that, and smart city, controlled city, not controlled city, and then the rest will be the garbage of the world, where you produce exactly the batteries, you do something with the blades from windmills. I mean, is it really sustainable for whom? I mean, you know, so it's a kind of a little bit maybe philosophical, but I would like to remind the panel that the green transition started because we want to save the world. Do we really doing this, or are we dividing? So that was the reflection.
We are getting close to the end, but it was a number of questions and it was a number of points. So the question is, who will reply?
I can start. I have the microphone. Since you started with data, or you started with Eurovision narrative, sounded very simplistic, and then you went all the way to politics and very difficult questions. In terms of data, so yes, data is a new oil, as mentioned in many years now, and then as any oil, it needs to be refined or regranulated. It's really what you make out of the data. If you look at the Silicon Valley, what they released today is actually machine learning, because machine learning models without data are not really the IP. In terms of data regulations, it's been introduced some years ago now, GDPR, so the protection of data. Now it's a new directive coming, NIS2, that will provide even more safety and security regulation around data. And still, there is a risk, I can confirm it. But data alone is nothing without you actually, again, pay it with a concrete domain expertise. I'll give you a very simple example. So let's say if you are on a platform and you smell hydrogen, which is like a little bit eggy smell, and you ask ChatGPT, which is trained on a vast amount of public data, like, what do you think that could be? The ChatGPT correctly so will say, maybe that's somebody's making egg rounds, it's breakfast time, huh? Which is correct. But if you know the domain, you would know that you better get out of there, because it's about to explode. It's a hydrogen leakage. And this is a very simple example, but it works in any domain. Like, you actually need to make sense of that data and to come to a point when you do manual labeling, when you do quality assurance, to actually train models, the machine, to a point that let's say you switch off your entire reactor, or power provider because you think it will be explode, because based on the data it says that yeah, actually this is like overproducing, overheating, you are going to lose millions, right, a day. And to get to that control of data, of machine learning, this is very, very expensive. It's just very hard. And this is where we will still need more creativity, more people, more quality assurance. And the latest WEF, the World Economic Forum, it's like AI is going to stay, it will scale and everything, but the critical skills will remain decision-making and creativity, and that will make the change. Sorry, long answer, but...
I would like to comment the question on carbon fees as well.
So before I move the microphone to you, I'll just answer the question about affordability. I just mentioned earlier that we're working on a financing solution, and that financing solution could in the end be meaning that you don't have to have the money to get that type of solar investment, because someone else can own it, and we can still transition to it. So there's possibilities even if people wouldn't be having, even in some cases they can't afford to just renovate the roof to a roof without any type of active material. So this is a huge opportunity actually to accelerate the transition into renewable energy with this.
I didn't say last time also that the company Bergkvist I work with, we sell or provide steam applications for laundry, food industry, and heat for asphalt producers and or so on. But carbon dioxide fees or fees on emissions is actually the best way forward. It's shown in many studies that it's very efficient. It's also the best for poor people, because rich people have several houses, they have several cars, they go by car all the time. They go by aviation. So if you tax energy, you get a lot more income from rich people than from poor people that go by bus or walk and not travel as much. So, but it's wrong thinking, and you can actually use 5-10% of the income from carbon dioxide tax to support poor people, if you like. It's not a problem. But it's a decision of the finance minister. So the finance minister can decide that immediately. It's not. So it's easy handled. If you can take away most of the subsidies, then you don't get companies that only thrive on the subsidies. Because politicians do not know the best solutions, and we can't agree on nuclear or biomass. But we could maybe agree on that the government should pay for the good properties that the different technologies have. So I like combined heat and power from biomass. So I would like them to pay for reactive effect or svängmassa, as we say in Swedish, or inertia, yeah, and other properties. And we can agree on that. We should be paid for that, and take away the subsidies. Yeah.
I have a good general answer from the Bonniers. Please.
If we are talking about data centers, I will not disclose the commercial secret. We are in discussion with the biggest companies in the world which are creating large data centers on, let's say, data highways. Usually, these are located in the middle of forest, if it is not yet cut off. Our technology fits very well to be located in somewhere this kind of application. So we don't need to be connected to the grid. We don't need to do anything like this, but we may supply energy to data centers, reliable energy, clean energy, to run, let's say, not gigawatts, but it depends. It's around 100 megawatt capacity each plant. Okay. And they're allowed. They are far away from people, and I believe that they will be pretty safe on handling your data.
Okay, may I have another question here? Because in the last part of
one
this
last very short question because we are over time.
All right. The last part of the question is what will happen the coming years. Okay, as we speak, in China, we have a real estate crash. Evergrande has a deficit of $350 billion. The Finnish economy is less than that. And they are crashing. And we have supply of PV in Europe, and also batteries, and also part of the windmills, turbines, are from China. The Chinese economy will crash, and it will be a stop of supply lines. How do you handle that?
If you are so specific, I can tell you that I suspect even bigger problem, because most of windmill gearboxes are made in Germany, all of them. And they are made in factories which now have to be switched to make gearboxes not for windmills but for some heavier vehicles. Okay, so probably this will be as well quite a big problem. Of course, Chinese, I mentioned several times. Okay, lithium source is China. I'm not saying about the. If we are talking about windmills, the future is solid magnet generators.
Neodymium.
Okay, neodymium, again from China. So we are linked, if we like or not. So if they're going to crash, we need to help them not to crash.
Or otherwise they just go bankrupt and some other buy the company and start to produce new solar panels and wind blades and so on. I mean, that's what happened in the West.
I can give an example of a very brilliant company in Järfälla, so very close from here, which is called Midsummer, and they do solar. They print solar panels on a substrate, and they use no materials from China. They are completely independent from that and producing the panels in Järfälla. So that's an example of sourcing materials from Europe, producing here in Sweden, and it's also viable. So I think there will be solutions also in that case.
Very shortly, I know it may sound skeptical. Maybe it's not that bad things that they do crash, because we as humans, as human nature, is like it's to adapt new things. It either has to be so intuitive that a 5-year-old can use it, or it's some kind of crisis or mandate. And just look what happened in pandemics and how we suddenly became all digital aware and remote collaboration just became normal. So maybe another crisis is not such a bad thing. Sorry, sounds very negative, but this is like usually fast tracks things.
We have a question from an online participant, and that question is to everybody who has spoken today, to the speakers and the panelists. And it's a very simple question. Does anybody have any plans to invest in Africa? I mean, the background to this question is there is a lot of energy needs in Africa. There is actually a need of electrification even. So the person asking the question asks everybody, any specific plans?
Both yes and no. Yes, in a sense that yes, it's a huge potential there. No, at the moment, because in terms, at least for my company, we are very dependent on the digital maturity and the presence of infrastructure. So it needs a little bit more time to actually get in the shape that is needed.
I actually got an email today asking from one person if we would like to invest in Africa. We specifically Nigeria, and one of early partners in the company was actually involved in a project in Nigeria. So we've looked at it, but we think there's so much to do in Europe that we just can't handle this. But for sure, it's probably a lot of interesting opportunities there as well.
Okay, so we the same. We need to have data, so we need to have sensors installed already to gather the data, and we need this infrastructure installed.
We are in Africa. We have engineering center in Pretoria.
Well, in Africa, the eucalyptus get to full size in 7 years, and pine, ordinary pine, in 12 years. And I was in a meeting last week with the guys from Tanzania, where they have 2.7 million hectares with a bush that is not indigenous. It's a problem. It's imported from, someone took it into Tanzania about 100 years ago from South America, actually. And it's a huge problem, so they need to get rid of it, and you could produce wood chips or pellets from it and get it out cheaper. So I believe biomass is a good cash crop for Africa. They are not allowed to sell food to us, since then we destroy the European farmer market. As I said before, we in 60 years the increase of production of food per hectare has been larger than the growth of population since 1960. So we do not have too much or too little food. Take that out of your mind. Everyone that says that always is wrong. So there's great potential to grow more, but we don't.
Okay, our main focus is Europe, and if we should entering in Africa, in that case, we need to have a partner there or a license partner. But it's still, they have big potential for overseas systems there, both in geothermal and also from solar ponds and so on.
So fantastic panel. So much great discussions. So PwC, obviously, we're very much present in Africa. Maybe the question was more directed to the remaining panel. But having said that, I think there's Africa presents a great investment case, especially related to solar. They have a commodity or two commodities that are rarer in Europe. And that is the amount of sun, but it's also the availability of geographical space. For sure, and I think there is a big opportunity for greater energy integration between Africa and the European Union. So I think we'll see that more going forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the audience for questions. Thank you for the discussion, to all the panelists, and I think you have some information to give.
Well, to start with, thank you once again to everybody who's been with us. Thank you to you who are present here. Thank you to the online participants. Thank you to the fantastic speakers and panelists. I think we should have an applaud. And now this is the space for networking, and please do not forget the cookies. I've been talking about the cookies previously. I will not repeat myself, but there is coffee, there is cheesecake, there is cake with nuts, there are some sandwiches. So, and please interact and please do business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.